If you're a craft business owner or you have a Cricut and you're looking to make some money with your Cricut, then this video is for you. Today I'm discussing if the platform Etsy is really worth it to start a craft business with in 2022. Hello and welcome if you're new here, or welcome back. My name is Amy and I create weekly videos about the Cricut, craft business tips, and the occasional Etsy videos. So if you love this kind of content, please subscribe to my channel. Now I know a majority of my audience has a Cricut or is looking to get a Cricut, but there's a handful of you that are looking to start a craft business with it and make some money as a side hustle or your full-time job. And the most common platform out there is Etsy. So today I wanted to discuss if creating an Etsy account is right for you. A while back, I asked a series of questions on my Instagram stories and I got so much feedback, so thank you very much for that. I'm going to reveal the results from those polls and then also discuss the pros and cons that you all submitted. The first question I asked was, do you have an Etsy account? 57% of you said, yes, I do have an Etsy. 36% of you said, no, you do not have an Etsy account, but you do have a website. And 7% of you said, I have both Etsy and a website, which I found very interesting that a majority of you do have Etsy. The next question I asked about the longevity. So how long have you had your Etsy account? And a majority of you did say that you had it for about under a year. There were very few of you that had it for about 2+ years and then 5+ years. I then asked the same exact questions for having a website. So a majority of you had a website for a little under a year, and then 19% of you said you had a website for 2 to 5 years, but only 2% of you had a website for 5+ years. Now the next question was very interesting, and I asked if you had to choose, which platform would you use? 15% of you said just Etsy, but a majority of you said you would just choose your website. And then surprisingly, 30% of you said, nope, I would keep both Etsy and my website. This next question I was very curious about because I know a lot of you have Etsy, and I was curious if you actually liked using it. 31% of you said, yep, I do love having it. But the top answer was, I'm kind of thinking of starting my own website. And then 13% of you said, nope, I quit Etsy and I refuse to go back on it. I felt like it was really important to ask those questions. I kind of wanted to just understand your thoughts more and get the statistics out of the way before the pros and cons. I think it really made a big difference in this whole video. Then my last question, I opened it up for you all to explain your pros and cons about Etsy and a website. I received 76 responses. I decided to tally all of the responses that you came up with and see which responses were more popular and vice versa, so I can give a well thought out opinion of what are the pros and cons of Etsy and a website. I wrote down on a little piece of paper here, so I'm gonna look at this a little bit. Oh, it makes my face a little brighter. So let's start with the pros and cons of having a website as a small craft business owner. The pros, and the most popular pro, was that there are less fees than Etsy. One of the biggest complaints I had about Etsy and their cons was that their fees are absolutely atrocious. The other two pros that I had about having your own website was that it is easily customizable and it's fun to create your own platform, and you have the freedom to do whatever you want since it is your own website. So as most of you know, Etsy is a third-party platform. Therefore, when you are working with any third-party platform, you have to follow their rules and regulations. And if you've heard my Etsy shop story, you would know that one of the cons of having an Etsy shop is that you can get deactivated because of Etsy's rules and regulations. Sometimes you might get deactivated for actually not following the rules, but there are a lot of cases where people have just gotten randomly deactivated and they're left with nothing. Now, the cons of starting your own website, and the biggest complaint that people had, was that it is very hard to get traffic on your own website. And the other thing was that it is very hard for people to find your website. Adding along to that, it is hard to also market your website. The one thing about Etsy that I've realized is that it is easy to get noticed versus having your own website. You have to really crunch down on using your SEO, marketing yourself, social media, advertisements, campaigns, etc. But I do want to say that regardless if you just have Etsy or if you just have a website, you do need social media. It is one of the easiest ways to promote your products. And I say that because it is free. You're not paying for advertisements on there. So for those who are a little discouraged about starting their own website because you have a little bit more work to do, just know that you should have a social media account regardless. And in the long run, you will find a lot of success in that. Now on to Etsy of their pros and cons. I did mention some of them briefly, but I'm going to further explain them. The number one pro that I received about having your own Etsy shop is that it is easier to find products and you get more traffic because of it. Now, what's nice about Etsy is that it is a very well-known platform. So a lot of people will have to search for a gift or something. Your shop might pop up. If you're properly using your Etsy titles, tags, product descriptions, and you're optimizing all of that, you will be able to get a lot more traffic and be very noticed on Etsy. The second pro of Etsy was that people found that it was very easy to sell. So Etsy was easy to navigate, start a shop, and just start selling. And one person did say that the seller protection program, which is very new, by the time that this video is going to be posted, it is out by now. Unfortunately, Etsy had a lot more cons than a website did. And the number one con of starting your own Etsy shop, I feel like you guys can guess this, was that their fees are insane. As most of you know, Etsy recently increased their fees on being on the platform, which makes it very difficult for shops to make a profit. And it kind of forces the shops that were already successful and on Etsy to increase their shop fees, which a lot of customers might get very mad about. I do have another video that explains the fees of Etsy specifically, so if you are wondering what those are, I will put the link for the card here. The second complaint about Etsy was that it is a third-party platform. So like I mentioned before, you do not own this platform. There will be some rules and regulations that you as a buyer need to follow. And if Etsy doesn't like how you handle something, they could deactivate your account. They could report your account, and it could be shut down, or they could remove your listings. There's an endless amount of things that could happen. The next three cons were all tied together. The first complaint was that Etsy shows other competitors on your page. Let me explain and show you what I mean. When you type in a gift that you are looking for, say I'm looking for a bridesmaid gift, I will click on that listing and wow, this looks like a great gift. But now if I scroll down, I don't see other products from this shop. I see other products from other shops. So Etsy isn't really helping you out here when it comes to getting more sales, because Etsy's kind of only thinking about themselves here, right? They're not thinking about you and how much money you can make. The next complaint was that Etsy likes to deactivate your accounts randomly. Again, I've mentioned that this is a very well-known issue. If you do not believe me, please take a look at the comment section in my Etsy shop got deactivated video. There are probably thousands of comments of people saying, oh my gosh, the same exact thing happened to me. I just opened my shop and they deactivated me. Why did this happen? I think it's a very alarming thing that Etsy can do this, and people should have every right to be concerned about this, especially when you're making all this effort to start a craft business, and then what's going to happen to the rest of your listings and the money that you received. And the other complaint that people had was that Etsy is very saturated. This is a very common thing that people do complain about. Now, I do have plenty of tips on my YouTube channel as well as TikTok to help you stand out as a business owner. So don't be discouraged just because Etsy is a little saturated and there are other doormat, tumbler, t-shirt companies out there. The last two complaints that I noticed about Etsy was that people didn't like that it wasn't customizable. When you create a website, you can make everything yours. Websites are able to have hundreds of themes that make them stand out from one another, versus Etsy, everyone's profile looks the same. We have the same layout of the same shop title, announcement, listing layout, which I think is a really big con. The only way that I feel like you can really stand out on Etsy is to make sure that your product photos are different or your titles are different. Now that I've gone over the pros and cons of having your own Etsy shop versus having your own website, I'm going to give you the rest of my thoughts and other things that I've noticed when people responded to my questions. A lot of you are very nervous to start your own website, whether this may be for money reasons, for time reasons, if you don't have the time to start and create create your own website, Etsy might be that better option for you because you don't have to necessarily hire a website builder or look into how to create a website. But what I will say, a good majority of you had both Etsy and a website. So if you're debating on creating a website, maybe start out with Etsy first and see how you can navigate them. And then from there, start your own website. I also had a DM from my very good friend Jess that I wanted to share because she summed it up perfectly about Etsy and having your own website. Etsy makes things easy as far as creating a storefront and listing items to sell, and helps drive in extra sales that likely wouldn't come from a regular website. But there are so many fees that come with it, it's almost impossible to make a real commission on any items you sell. The Star Seller program is also stupid and definitely unachievable for most sellers, which isn't fair. Having your own website gives you freedom to do whatever you want, which is so nice and something I would love to do down the road. But most of my Etsy sales come from people searching and my products being in the search results or through Etsy ad campaigns, which put my listings at the top of pages. That would be a large customer base I would lose out on right now if I were to switch to a website, which sucks because I definitely prefer that route. And I agree with her. Etsy does a great job at helping people get traffic because of its popularity. But someone like Jess, who already has a big customer base on Etsy, she's a little worried about switching to a website because... And this is where my camera didn't tell me it stopped recording. So let's sum up what was said. Although I do agree that Etsy is an easy way to get customers to your shop because there are thousands of online Etsy buyers, I do not think you should solely rely on Etsy for your customers and traffic. And here's why. Etsy is notorious for shutting down shops and not telling you why, which can lead you to frantically creating a website in a rush just to keep your business afloat. And when things are rushed, they're not really our best work. Coming from experience. If you want to learn how to get more sales and traffic to your craft business besides Etsy, watch these two videos because I'm telling y'all, every business owner should not depend on just one traffic source. And the last thought I wanted to share was that Etsy is a great platform for digital files such as SVGs, templates, and other online downloads. Think about it. You don't have to worry about shipping costs or shipping anything for that matter because there are less fees, and truthfully, it's less of a headache because you're not making products every day. The work is already done. But you guys are craft business owners where you physically make products with your Cricut, so unless you're selling SVGs that you're willing to share with the world, maybe reconsider Etsy as your platform choice. Now I want to hear from you. Comment below how this video helped you and if you're thinking of starting an Etsy shop or launching your own website. And please, if you have any other pros and cons, share them because you can help other craft businesses and crafters. Thank you as always for watching. Please subscribe to learn all the Cricut crafting content, and I'll see you in next week's video. Bye!
Don't you wanna know that the time's changing? Don't you wanna know that the